All right, we are back for Knicks Morning Coffee. It's been a while since the last time we met, but yeah, as you know now, the NBA season has already started as far as the playoffs, and the Knicks are not in it. We knew that, but I think the way they did it with the play-in games, I think that was kind of cool. The Knicks had a chance to be in the play-in games, but I didn't really like that neither because we didn't deserve it. And then if we snuck in and maybe probably even got hot, but it wasn't fair to the teams that put in that work, all through the season. So what we're gonna do right now is that just go over the past few months, some of the things the Knicks have been in the news for, and one is the GM and president search. The other is the coaches, and then we'll just touch a little bit on the future draft picks coming up. Before I get to that, we have to give a shout out to Georgetown legendary coach John Thompson for passing away. We all know he was Patrick Ewing, Lonzo Mourning, a lot of those guys coaches, and then what he did for a lot of black men, growing up in the inner cities, you can't duplicate that. So, shout out to Big John. All right, so let's get to the Knicks front office. All right, so our president is Leon Rose, and our general manager is Scott Perry. Now, we know that Scott Perry is from the last regime. With Steve Mills, that kind of blew up in our face. All the high hopes that we had, all the talk about the rebuilding plan. So keeping Perry around in the beginning right now, I don't think that's bad, but in the long haul, I don't think we should have him on our coaching or even helping us find coaches. And then also we hear that Sacramento is thinking about hiring Scott Perry. So, I'm kind of hoping that after Leon Rose get his feet wet, that, Perry just move on, because we need a fresh start and some new voices. And then, I think we got lucky with getting Leon Rose as our president. And then which asked the question, who is Leon Rose? So Leon Rose is he was an agent to the players, and he was a super agent. So he had some of the top players in the league, doing that job. So that should kind of bode well for us, when it comes to dealing with other teams. Because we know in the past, all other teams really did with us when it came time to trade was that they just used us. They took our incompetence and then it either turned into a bad player for us or a bad contract. So now maybe with the relationship that Leon Rose has, because he represented players, on every team at some level. So, that should help us out a lot, that at least we'll get in a good conversation with the other presidents around the league and then make some things happen. And then of course, that also brings us to another hire, which is Worldwide West. Now, Worldwide West, William Wesley, he's known for steering some of the top college prospects to their schools that they attended. So if you're a coach and you didn't know him, then chances are, that one of those top 100 recruits in college basketball coming out of high school, then you wasn't getting. Because it seems like everything went through him, and his relationships with players and people around the league, that also should bode well for us. Now,
you should.
Yeah, but after we seen with getting Phil Jackson, was supposed to be able to bring in people, then you get the all, black front office that was supposed to be doing so many nice things and bringing in that all failed. Now we want people that know their job and know how to get out and recruit. So it seems like bringing in West and Rose, they're gonna know how to get out and recruit and at least get a meeting with players. Because remember, we didn't even get a meeting with Kevin Durant and a lot of them guys. They didn't even sit down with us. So that's saying something. So I don't think a lot of those players, even if we don't get them, I don't think they won't look Leon in the eye, and just, spurn him off just like that. I think they will at least talk to him, and then he should have the savvy, because if he convince you to join him, instead of people like when David Falk was the super agent, how does an agent get a top player to come join his team? So that means you got to get out there, you got to know how to maneuver, and you got to know how to cater to people. So I'm kind of happy about that. And then they brought in, a lot of other front office people who's really supposed to be at the top of their game. Now, one hire in particular, I don't know that much about him, but from what I was seeing, he's supposed to be a top capologist. And the importance of having a guy like that on your side could mean night and day for your team, in the future. And I know this is going to be a bad analogy, but when we had when Isaiah Thomas became our president, we didn't have no players at all. We didn't have nobody that other people wanted. And that's one of the things he said he would do, was go out and beat the bushes and bring in players that other teams want so we can start building out a nice roster. And we had a revolving door around Isaiah Thomas. And one of the reasons is that he had a capologist at his side so that when a deal became available, he already had that man next to him to crunch the numbers and get the job done. So we were not stuck in a bad contract, So we just kept moving them until eventually the next president at that time at least was able to get some more stability. But that would have never happened if Isaiah Thomas didn't have a capologist at his side who knew what he was doing and knew how to crunch the numbers. So I think that's just as important in the front office for us as anybody else. So now let's move down to our coaches. So we all know that we got Tom Thibodeau as our head coach. I wasn't really for it in the beginning. Really wasn't that crazy about it. Wasn't that crazy about the whole list that we had in the beginning. Because this is like a new day in the NBA. But the one that intrigued me was, and I don't even know if it's really signed yet, Mike Woodson. Now, Mike Woodson and Tom Thibodeau, to me, they kind of do the same thing. I mean, they're both really defensive coaches. Of course, Tom is a little bit more genius at it. He's like the way you can call an offensive play in crunch time, he can call a defensive play. So, that would help. But Woodson, I mean, I'm trying to figure out having the two. It'd be good having Woodson to smooth out the players, the good cop, bad cop, because we know Tom is going to bring it in that sense. But having those two on the sideline together, who do similar, the same things, I ain't fully understand that. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't quite get that one. But we know that Tom Thibodeau is going to bring it for the Knicks every day. And he's going to put credibility back into the organization. That when teams are scouting us, now they're going to know at night, the players going to have to go home and get their sleep because they know that Tibbs is going to be out there and he's going to diagram stuff to shut down your best player. And for all accounts, what we do know about Tibbs is that he doesn't play the weak side defense. He played the front side defense. So whatever your best move is, unless you just on that night, you're going to have to go to your second and third move because he's going to definitely take that away from you if we got the players, in place for that. And then they brought in other coaches. And I just hope that those other coaches are people that Tibbs want, because you don't go out and get a guy like Tibbs and don't let him have his own hire. Because if you're going to bring in a guy with his defensive resume, and I'm pretty sure it's difficult to learn all the terms he used and the patterns on the court that he used, and he don't have his own guys to help explain it, then that's going to be a problem. So now you got to have a guy like Taj Gibson. Now he kind of has to stay, because if Tibbs don't have his own guys, then you need a player that played for him twice that can at least help everybody out and be that coach on the floor. But, Gibson may want to be somewhere where he can play, right away. So, but I think the team that the Knicks might be putting together, if they're going young, there may not be a spot for him. And then you might have to think about bringing back, Joe Kim, Noah, who played for him, who could probably explain things to the other players and may not mind, coming off the bench or if playing at all. But I think that's going to be a bit of a problem. The one thing I was excited about, and I am excited about, rather, is our developmental coaches, because I didn't even know, because I knew what Craig Robinson was supposed to be for us, a developmental coach, but he was in the D League. I didn't even know that we didn't have a developmental team. So all that talk about developing our players and not skipping steps, that Scott Perry was talking about, then what happened then? We didn't do none of that. So we know that Tibbs is willing to send young guys to the G League if they're struggling, which is great. Then they bring in this guy, Johnny, what's his name? Johnny Bryant. Did you ever hear him, Joey?
No, I never heard that.
Well, he came out of Utah, and he's a young developmental coach, and he worked with Donovan Mitchell. So that's going to be a big plus for us to have a guy that can get out there and work with the guards, and when they're showing them the moves, probably better them at it. And then these NBA players today, they'll respect that. And then also,
did they do that to try to keep him in? Or
well, we don't know. We don't got. I mean, it's so stupid that we thinking about going out and trying to trade for Donovan Mitchell when we should have drafted him when the time came.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm trying to believe that that's not a move to try to get Mitchell later on. I'm hoping that that's a move to develop because we got so many guards and so many good guards that just haven't found their way. Now, the biggest coach, the assistant coach that I think we picked up was Kenny Payne. Now, Kenny Payne we know about, out of Kentucky, been assistant coach in there for years. And then, too, I'm finding out now that he was the main reason Calipari got all them guys in Kentucky. They went to that school for him. Calipari got the shine. And then the players saying he was the one that developed them. Even Anthony Davis said that it was Kenny Payne who gave me my go-to move at Kentucky. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know what that go-to move is because the only thing I see Anthony Davis doing, is grabbing the ball and running, shooting. I mean, great player, but I don't see no go-to move. But still, just the fact that all these guys...
I do got one. To the basket.
Yeah, into the basket, yeah. But all these guys that came out of Kentucky, all of them, they all rave about him. And then that's going to be good for Kevin Knox because we got to hang on to Kevin Knox. And he was Kevin Knox's confidant while he was at Kentucky. So, that should help us out, tremendously, going in with the season because we got so many young guys and we got so many draft picks in the next couple of years. So we're going to need people. We're going to need a head coach, to steer the ship. But we're going to need people that know how to get out there and get the best out of these players, and especially these young players because they're making a lot of money. And we need guys that just know how to hammer it home to them, what they got to do. And these are your marching orders. You go out and get it done. And then last was the NBA lottery and then the draft prospects. Now, the NBA lottery, we're picking 8th. Now, we was hoping for some magic and really thought it might be some magic, but, there's no real horse in this draft. So, to me, we're not losing nothing in that. And then plus, there's nobody really in this draft that's going to change our fortunes around just like that. We're going to need some free agents, and we still have a ton of money that we're going to have to be able to spend. So between that and the draft picks, we should at least find somebody that can help us. And a lot of the big names, so-called big names, LaMelo Ball, those guys, the one out of the kid out of Georgia, a lot of those guys are going to be off the board. But a few people that are supposed to be around for us to choose from. Florida State, Devin Vassell, 3-and-D guy, a big upside type of a player, somebody you could plug in coming off the bench, be able to do his job. Somebody nobody really wants, but I kind of think that, he's not great, but he can shoot. Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. Nobody seems to really care about that kid anymore as the draft is going on, but, this dude can shoot. The knock that he can't create his own shot, okay, but we're not asking you to come in here and be the point guard of the future. But if you can knock down an open shot at will, then we need that because the Knicks haven't had that, I don't know, forever. We brought in a couple of shooters last year, but we didn't let them do what they do. So if we can get a young guy that can come off the bench and hit a shot, that's great for us. And then you got like Killian Hayes and Cole Anthony, 2 point guards who can get in the lane. But I'm not really feeling him right now. I'd rather, if that was the case, let me keep Elfrid Payton, because at least Elfrid Payton, we know that he'll at least be able to go out and whatever the instructions are from Tibbs, he'll be able to carry it out. So I would just throw that away and just draft any old point guard, just because they're available. Now, an interesting person that was on the board for us, Precious Akachua. I don't want to just chop his name all up, but he's another big guy. Like a Mitch Robinson, I would keep my eye on him because I liked him. I think he's a good pickup if he can fall to you. And he also has that Kenny Wooten factor, which Kenny Wooten will be like having another draft pick. So we got to get Kenny on that main roster, and get him rocking and rolling because that man he can change the whole game for you defensively and then you put him and Mitch out there together, there's no telling what the Knicks can do. But then too, there's this kid. Now this is what I would do, because we got so many draft picks between this year, next year, and the year after. Now we have the 8th, we got somewhere in the late 20s in the first round, and then we got an early pick in the 3rd round. Now, one thing I would do, I don't really see nobody in the draft that can help Golden State at number 2. Now, I would go to Golden State with our number 8 pick, and they got their eyes on Frank. Now, I still want to keep Frank, but they got their eye on him. Listen, you want to take Frank and the number 8 and give me the number 2? I'll take that, because y'all know that there's this international guy out there named Dina. I'm not even trying to Deanie something, but this boy can play, and he's in that line of Luka. Now he could be a game changer. He could be a game changer, because he can do everything at a point guard. He's a big point guard that can shoot, dribble, pass, rebound, run the floor, his court vision. So a guy like that, yeah, I'd gamble on it and try to get up in the earlier rounds. But other than that, Toppin is a good player. He could be a power forward that can help you right away. But what's going to help the Knicks this year is the players in the free agency, and then sprinkle in some of the guys, in draft picks. We already got a whole bunch of young guys. But this was just a few things that I want to talk about, since I haven't really seen y'all in a while. And the draft, we'll dive into that, because the draft is in about a little over a month. So we'll dive into where the Knicks could draft, who's going to fall. And I'm also glad that maybe this year we didn't have the NCAA tournament, because that's the fool's gold, that people start picking a guy that was mediocre all year and got hot in the tournament. And that's why it's a Cinderella tournament. And then they get hot for those 2-3 weeks, and all of a sudden you think you got a gem, and then you draft them and you bring them in, and then they go right back down to a dud. So now you got to draft guys on what they actually did in college, because that's the only footage that you got. Now there'll be some virtual stuff, of course, but this is a good chance for the Knicks now to lay a good foundation. You put some good people in the front office. You put a good man, at the bench running things. So now I think we got a chance now, to do some stuff. But, if you like basketball, or you have a friend who likes the Knicks, or maybe don't have a lot of time, share this with them, and we'll keep it going and keep the conversation going of where the Knicks could be. But, of course, please, like, comment, subscribe, and definitely share. All right. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.